Hello, 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 and good morning, my creative friends. Super excited to be here with you live on a Friday morning as I'm getting the Facebook up and running and YouTube up and running. Bear with me for just a second here. So, welcome. I'm Dr. Minette Riordan. This is Painting in Your PJs live with Minette, and I am super excited to be here doing what I love most, which is introspective and intuitive art designed to really help me connect to myself on a deeper level. And our prompts for January are all about going deeper. They're pretty profound prompts, and you can download those prompts for free in the link below this video on either Facebook or here on YouTube. They are in the description. Good morning, Judy. Great to see you. I believe that art is one of the most powerful tools for healing, for self-discovery, and for making some of that deeper soul work a little bit more playful and fun. And our prompt today, good morning, Yvonne, is about soul searching. And the prompt says to create a visual representation of your journey into your inner self. So it felt very appropriate to create a self-portrait today. So that's what we're going to do. And before I dive into today's painting, I want to remind you that we have our 3-day live event, the Mythical Makeover Experience, featuring the Secret Garden, coming up February 9th, 10th, and 11th. You'll also find the link to that program in the description of the video as well. This was one of my good morning, Leslie, absolute all-time favorite girlhood books. I love the book. I love the movies and different versions of it that were made. This is the author that also wrote The Little Princess, and many of us remember the famous movie with Shirley Temple. But what I love about Mary, the main character in this story, is that she goes on such a heroine's journey from the loss of her parents and being an orphan, traveling halfway around the world from India to England, and everything that blooms in her life because of her own sort of tenacity and curiosity. So we're going to be exploring inner child archetypes and secret gardens and hidden doors and all kinds of fun things. I've been having fun making all kinds of different paper dolls over the last few days in preparation for the workshop. I love paper dolls. So super excited and would love for you to join me for this 3-day live event. It's 90 minutes a day, Friday, Saturday, and Sunday. It will all be recorded. So again, just go take a look and see if it's for you. But if you love what I do here on my YouTube channel, you really love doing more intuitive, introspective art, and you love being guided by story, then the Mythical Makeover Experience is perfect for you. So today, as I was thinking about this theme, switch my camera here. Awesome. Thank you, Yvonne. Me too. Me too. Super excited for this one. So eventually I'm going to have 4 different Mythical Makeover experiences. So far we have Nancy Drew, The Wizard of Oz, now The Secret Garden, and the last one is going to be all about Merlin and Arthur and another one of my favorite childhood books, The Crystal Cave, probably coming later this summer. So lots of fun stuff going on. So I decided that I wanted to tackle a self-portrait for this idea of soul searching, not cell. Well, I am in soul searching into the inside, right? This idea of painting a visual representation of my journey to the inner self. So I took my phone. Good morning, Carol. I took a bunch of selfies. I knew I wanted a profile painting. I played with eyes open, eyes closed. I'm in my pajamas and my favorite painty hoodie, hair standing up. It doesn't matter. We're going to paint over all of that. But when it comes to painting self-portraits, one of my favorite things to do is to start with a photograph of myself, or even painting any kind of a portrait. A lot of times starting with a photograph is a great way to do that. So I'm going to go ahead and cut this image of myself out, and boy, with the light on my hair in this, could I really see how gray my hair is. I took pictures, glasses on, glasses off, and eventually I did take glasses off because this is an inward journey, not an outward journey, and so they did not feel necessary for this painting. I usually like to paint myself with my glasses on. All right, so one of my favorite ways to practice painting people is to just paint right over a magazine image. And what I want to decide here for just a second before I do that is, do I actually want to perhaps get the background down first, or am I going to add the background as I go? And I saw this other picture this morning that I was inspired by, where it was a portrait of a woman in profile, and she was, there she is, and she is surrounded by these blue and purple swirls, and she's kind of looking off into the distance and kind of paint splattery and blue and purple and gold. So I'm looking at the picture. I know you guys can't see it. I should have printed it out, but I'm looking at the colors, and I think what I want to do is get a layer of paint, good morning Barbara, down on to the background first, and then I will add my portrait and add the paint over the top of that. So I'm feeling very, excuse me, called to these blues and purples, and definitely some metallic gold. My absolute favorite metallic gold is this Nova Color Sun Gold. It's very, very opaque. A lot of golds are very transparent, but I think this is one of the best opaque gold paints on the market. I love it. All right, I also think that I want some scrap paper underneath the edges of this, because I've been doing a good job of sort of painting my pages in my journal together, and I want to be a little mindful of that. I'm also thinking that I want to put a little bit of gesso on the page. I don't know where my gesso is, so maybe we'll just do a little bit of clear gesso. I just want to increase the integrity of the page a little bit. You can see I'm right at the end of that. And it doesn't matter if it's clear or white, but this is just to strengthen the page before I start adding a bunch of layers. And I want to make sure I'm getting that all the way to the very edges of the page, except for in my spirals. I made the mistake of the other day of painting over those spirals and ended up not being able to turn the page in the journal because it was all glued together. So happy Friday. How is everyone on this chilly Friday morning? Weather again is crazy here today. So yesterday at lunchtime it was 40, and a couple of hours later it was in the 20s, and now it's a balmy 8 degrees, which is still significantly warmer than the minus 12 I woke up to the other morning. And I'm looking forward to a quiet weekend with plenty of time for rest and time in my studio, quiet time in my studio. All right, I'm going to hit this with the dryer quickly. My sun is coming for dinner. Oh, yeah, I haven't looked at the wind chill this morning, Leslie, to see what the wind chill is. We all just need to go camp out with Barbara in Florida. I think that would be the best idea. Just get out of here completely. Let's see. Mine says it feels like 0, so slightly warmer here. Okay, so I want to just get a little bit of color down. I'm thinking kind of, swirly, magical sky. I was trying to decide if I wanted to also include some collage bits in this, and I'm thinking other than the self-portrait that I want to keep this one kind of a little bit more flat, not as much texture for the painting. Carol, remind me, where do you live? You're going to reorganize studio and work on projects. That sounds amazing. Come on down, cloudy and 63 today. Well, if it's not sunny, I just don't know, Barbara. Eastern Washington. Yeah, you guys have had the crazy, crazy weather too. It has been a crazy season. My daughter texted me yesterday that she was finally, what was yesterday, Thursday, back in 0 degrees heat wave, Judy. That's hilarious. That she was finally back in classes and to work after a week off from crazy ice storms in Oregon, where she goes to university. So I just put little bits and spots of paint down on the surface here in different places. You can see I've got them all nice and kind of mixed together. And I love the texture that this creates, where I'm not making any effort to blend or to separate the colors, either one. I'm looking for just kind of those sort of sheer transparent bits of blue. I put way too much paint down on the page, but that's okay. I'm looking at this going, I definitely want it to have a few more spaces of that dark blue, but I do have this extra paint here on my little scraper. So I am just going to grab a book page out of a book that I keep sitting beside me just for things like this. And I'm just going to clean that scraper off. Probably could have done a couple of book pages. Let's just do that. And then I just set these aside to dry. I will add more layers to it, and at some point it becomes a page in a junk journal or collage fodder, or I actually really like zentangling over painted book pages like this. Okay, no wasted paint. And I want to get a little bit more of this blue, darker blue down on here. And I think I'm going to add just a little bit of water. And we're just going to soften that up just a little bit. See if we can get it to a little blow or flend. There we go. I'm going for sort of, a soft, moody sky here. And because now this page is so wet, that's why I took the time to add that layer of clear gesso to the page. And I may not see any of this by the time that, and I apologize, that wet paint is just always so glary, but if I move the lights, then it all gets too dark. There we go. Maybe that's slightly a little bit better. Okay, and then we're going to come in with this blue and clean that off here. And I'm going to get this nice and dry, and then I'm going to glue my self-portrait down, and we'll see where we decide to go next with this. We, the royal we. I end up with so many paper scraps in my studio from all of my different projects and printouts and things that I do that I'm almost thinking it might be really interesting to go down a rabbit hole of learning how to make handmade paper so that I could recycle some of these paper scraps that I have. Just seeing if there's any really wet spots on there. Clean those up just a little bit. Oh, I love when this happens with the water drop, so maybe we're going to do some of that on purpose before I put my self-portrait down. So I'm going to get just a nice big round brush here, and you're not going to be able to see what I'm doing, but I'm just putting water droplets. I love this technique and the transparency that it creates. I'm going to let those dry here for just a second, and then I'm going to wipe the water away, and we're going to get a nice sort of starry, speckledy background. I just printed it, Carol, on absolutely plain inkjet printer paper, nothing fancy at all. I didn't resize it. I just sent it right from my phone to the printer. It's about the right size. And I don't care if the ink stays put or anything like that because the whole thing's going to get painted over. So it's going to be fine the way it is. And as I always do, I took some time to do some journaling before I decided where I wanted to go with the creative piece this morning, and thinking about what would a visual representation of my inner journey to self look like? And I thought about forest paths, and I thought about stars, and I thought about swirls. I love swirls. This is a handmade stamp. And I have decided that swirl is my symbol of the year because I love the idea, my spiraling in, spiraling out. It feels very appropriate to my personal journeys within. And I had a lot of just sort of thinking about how much I love guided visualization, and I do love traveling within those inner journeys, and I don't make enough time to do them. I get busy, right? Or I'd rather be painting. See that? I love this technique. So I'm just taking a paper towel. I let that water rest there for a minute, and it just creates a really fun way to create just a little more texture and interest on the page. I could have even done more of those. I might do them again later. And then I thought about colors and travel and spaciousness within and going deep, which is what led me down this path to creating a self-portrait. And no one needs to see what's happening within, right? So this is, again, about my experience of my journey, which is always mindful and sweet, happens with eyes closed. I'm putting that matte medium on the back and the front of my image. I don't care if this gets paint on it. It's just here really as a template. Nope, I'm not going to be able to pull that up. I'm wishing I'd put it a little more over to the side, but it will all be fine. So I wanted to capture that experience of traveling within, sort of the magic and mystery of my connection to spirit, God, universe, whatever that is for you, to something that is larger than myself, connecting to that immense and wonderful depth and magic that resides within all of us. And I'm definitely feeling like I want some of these spirals down on the page. And I think I'm going to start with some some white paint for that. So get some white paint going here. And bear with me while I find there we go. Makeup sponge. You can use, when you make handmade stamps like this, you can use a paintbrush, a brayer. You can also roll out the paint on a surface like this and then dip your stamp in it. But I have found that I like the texture and how much paint I can get on there with a makeup sponge. That spiral was pretty big. Let's put a couple of these smaller ones on there. So I'm curious, as you think about this prompt of soul searching and a visual representation of your inner journey, your inner relationship with yourself, are there symbols or colors that come to the surface of your own thinking or knowing when you think about this topic? And I'm thinking I'm going to paint all around first and do the face last, perhaps? Or am I going to do the face first and do the rest last? It's a good question. I even love on this thick foam all by itself makes really great marks and lines. I'm always looking around to see, what can I use to create texture and interest and get my fingers all nice and happy painty. Such a fun way to start the day. So I'm thinking I'm going to go ahead and get some color down on the face. I think by the time it's done, really all I'm going to see is like this much, and the rest is going to be kind of these abstract swirls and movement of energy. That's what I'm thinking. Okay, so, and painting the face is often for me the hardest part, so I am going to start there. And we're going to just start mixing up something that is skin tone-ish. And our weather guy said it's definitely going to be starting to warm up next week. I am missing my walks for sure. Actually, that peachy color is really close. That's kind of fun. So this is a paper artsy butternut. It's a beautiful color, but if I remember correctly, it actually goes on a little more yellow than it looks like. But let's just, yeah, get some on there. There's not a lot of color in the lips. But I'll probably give it some color. Notice where I've got some darks. I'm going to want some, darker browns for the nostrils and the shadows underneath. This is all going to get painted out, so I'm just kind of cleaning off that brush. Actually, I think what I want to do is decide how much of this face do I want to see. And I think that's going to help me decide where to go next. So this is, again, just a happy, messy experiment here. Yep, I think just the face peeking out of all of the energy of this journey within is going to be the most interesting. In this particular photograph, there's not a lot of lights and darks, but there's some. And again, I'm just using that photograph as kind of a guideline. To create kind of a mythical fantasy portrait here. And I'll bring some of the hair back. This is going to help me see, do I actually want, kind of thinking maybe I do, maybe the ear is going to stay. So we'll have some of that ear poking out a little bit. So again, just getting those layers and colors down. Noticing where there would be some highlights. Although in the picture the original picture, you could see where the light was shining directly. All right. Definitely need a little bit of brown going on here. So let's see what we can find. So I'm going to try a little bit of red oxide and see if we can just darken some of this up just a little bit to create some of those shadows. I love mixing skin tones. It's a really fun exercise. So if it's something you want to get better at, what I recommend is just, getting a page, nope, not dark enough, in your journal and just playing with different variations of skin tones and different combinations to see what you like in terms of color. So I'm looking for a teeny tiny little flat brush. All right, I'll try this one. I always wanted to have red hair. I always loved red hair. Like in the Disney movie Brave, I would have loved to have had red hair like that. All right, so a very simple portrait coming together. I could decide, because it's my portrait, that maybe I'm going to paint out a little bit of that double chin there or not. But I want to just bring a little bit of that shading in. Let's see, get a dry brush. Remember, when you're working with acrylics that a dry brush is your best friend. You don't want that brush to get too wet, and this one right now is laden with paint that I don't necessarily want to not use up. I actually really like that. What a simple way to create just something that looks and feels like me. And now, so I'm going to leave that for the moment, and then I will come back and work some more on the background. I might decide it needs even a few more highlights in places, and take that dry brush and just kind of use that dry brush to scrub a little bit and sort of blend those together. All right, I'm pretty happy with that. Curious what other people are working on this morning as you're playing along here with me. Okay, let's clean this brush off before I stick it in the water. So even this page can become a nice page, right? It's a great thing to use as a palette and then later on become a lovely page for collage. And these aren't quite the palette that I'm going for, but I do want to use up paint. So I'm just going to go ahead and use up the paint in my palette because I think eventually it will just add some nice layers as we go along. At this early stage, I'm not too worried about what that's going to look like. I'm going to decide, do I want her to have hair, or is it all just going to be energy and movement on the page? Where I think maybe her hair is going to become part of that. Baby wipes, Carol, is what I use for stamps and stencils, but I don't worry too much about it. If they get gunked up, you can always just soak them in some warm water and all the paint will come off. I do have a bucket of water that when I am done with a brush, I drop it in the water so that it doesn't get dried out or gunked up. But rather than always washing that brush and reusing the same brush, I have a bunch of brushes and I start with often with a dry brush. Okay, I'm definitely going to want to bring in some of this pretty magenta. And I think we just have to kind of, work to find our rhythm. But you can ask my daughter, I'm a bit of a Nazi for keeping brushes clean in the studio. Don't leave them sitting in water. It ruins the wood handles. Okay, so we have a bit of an interesting mess going on at the moment. I love this sort of peaceful, mindful look on the face here, but I'm going to want to tone this painting down a lot, but I like kind of these undercurrents. I'm going to save that white and yellow. They may come back at the end for just some starry highlights, but I want to kind of decide where I'm going here. I don't care if I can see those spirals. I know that they're there, that those seeds are planted, but again, I'm looking to create something that is abstract and energetic that kind of just represents that spiritual energy within. And for some reason, I'm kind of almost seeing some wings here in the background. Maybe paint myself a little bit of a mythical fairy energy here. Again, I'm just sort of, trusting whatever's showing up on the surface, which then feels like there's kind of this, maybe even a crown here. I'm always amazed with how I can start in one place with an idea and end up someplace completely different on the journey where I'm going. Good morning, Marion. Good morning. Good morning. I have to tell you how much I am loving my coffee warmer, my friend. It is sitting here on the table beside me, and it's just got this cup of warm water on it, but it is a lifesaver. Marion heard me complain about my coffee getting cold all the time while I'm talking, and so she got me a coffee warmer, and it is such a treat. So, our theme this morning is soul searching and creating a self portrait that represents that journey within, our journey within to kind of the depths of our own soul. And I started with a photograph of myself, and you can see that that is quickly changing to become something quite different, but it still holds the energy and essence of self, imaginary self. So I'm kind of liking the sort of direction, the fairy direction this is going here. It's going to need a lot more color, but it still feels like the blues are that sort of dominant color, and I'm wanting to bring in some purple as well. Those royal colors. Okay, I'm liking the purple, so let's get some, use that to kind of start to calm down the background that's there so we can make some different decisions about where to go next. I've always loved stories of elves and fairies and myth and magic, so it's not a surprise that when I start to think about that inner journey or that inner perspective, that intuitively that kind of love of myth and folklore is what is showing up in this self-portrait. And I think she's gonna need to maybe have a robe on here. Again, keeping everything sort of very loose and abstract. Okay, we're starting to get somewhere. This may be one of those that takes longer than I had anticipated. If you're just joining us, welcome. Our prompt for today is soul searching and creating a self-portrait that represents, that visually represents that journey within. And I started with a photograph of myself that I cut out and collaged onto the paper with some matte medium. Now it feels like maybe there should be a dragon or something else in the image here, or maybe This piece here is a dragon. I've been drawing dragons in my journal lately. It is the year of the dragon. My Chinese zodiac is a dragon. I was born in the year of the dragon, so not a surprise how much I love dragons. Not that I know how to paint or draw a dragon. And this is what I love about the intuitive painting process is allowing the story to unfold, having an idea in my mind ahead of time, but not feeling married to that idea or getting overly caught up in that something doesn't look on the page like I expect it to look in my mind's eye, because then it's just frustrating. And so if I can really just lean in and let the story unfold, I am ultimately happy with the outcome. It just requires some patience. Okay, very interesting. I might have to go look at some pictures of some dragons so I get kind of a better idea of what this dragon is going to look like. But I thought it was fairy wings, but apparently it's dragon wings. Thank you. It's coming together. So now definitely wanting to brighten up the background. I think we're going to keep some of these purple swirls and things down here, but maybe bringing back some of these brighter blues up around the edges here. Again, I love starting with a photograph, a magazine image to practice painting people. It's such a great way to understand shapes and dimensions and shadows and highlights. So if on your to get better at list this year is painting people, it's a good place to start. And I'm going to keep this, yes, the faithful dragon for sure. I'm going to keep this very loose and abstract. It doesn't need to have a lot of detail. I'm kind of liking the almost a little more sketchy style of the paint. Again, definitely wanting maybe to bring some swirls back and some, sparkly white spatters into the sky. Maybe there's even going to be a moon here. It's funny because I've been saying I wanted to paint some more mythic imagery, some kind of different paintings, and I haven't sort of sat down and, planned or thought too specifically about that. And then here it is just appearing out of the depths of my imagination and my love of fantasy fiction since I was a girl. Actually, my love of all fiction. Okay, definitely loving the kind of just a little more painterly look, not making things, have to be too smooth or perfect, but keeping it just kind of a little bit loose. So a few more highlights in here. I tend to be very hard on my brushes. So I end up having a lot of them because acrylics are rough on your brushes, and so mine I love to really scrub, especially on canvas, which kind of definitely makes a mess of my brushes. So I try to keep some that are very, smooth and neat, and then some that I use to really scrub that art with. Okay, so I need to figure out what's going on here and then maybe bring that dragon a little bit more into focus. I'm happy for that the dragon to stay pretty abstract, but I think she needs some hair to kind of complete her neck in there. That's better. Doesn't look like her head is quite so cut off there. And then I think a little more purple on her robe, her sort of royal purple. And then I want that dragon to stand out from the background, although I kind of like the purple dragon. Definitely needs a longer tail, or he could be this red oxide color too. You notice I'm using a pretty limited palette, not wanting to add too many colors here, right? Because we really want everything to feel like it kind of fits on that page. All right, I think I'm going to come in and maybe draw some attributes of the dragon and then decide where to go next with him. And so if you're wondering what my inner journey to self looks like, apparently I'm communing with dragons. I mentioned before, I love doing guided visualizations and guided journeys, and this is definitely something that I might see on a guided inner journey. All right, let's get some more white down. I'm going to brighten up these wings without losing all of that color and texture. And I don't want any of this to have too much detail. It's funny, I can still see in the collage some of the plaid of my pajamas underneath the image there. All right, nice big dragon wing. And of course, I just took all my posca markers over to the other table. So I'm going to keep his face really simple. I'm going to give him some horns here. We're going to give him a little bit of an eye, kind of like the face. We're just going to sort of keep this all a little bit shadowy. but it definitely feels like he needs some texture along his back and his tail. And I think that wing got too big, so I'm gonna pull some of that back out again. Again, just keeping the image very simple. I think because this is intended to be that sort of fantasy journey within, it feels that, just a little bit hazy, right? It's not super crystal clear. Good morning, Jen. Good morning, good morning. So we are painting a bit of a fantasy self-portrait here this morning, with the intention being to visually represent our journey within. I'm going to come in and get some nice shiny gold down on her crown here. When my daughter and her partner were home for Christmas, the four of us sat around the kitchen table one night looking at dragon pictures because I would love to paint a mural. There's a huge wall at the bottom of the staircase on the way down to my basement, which would be a perfect place to paint a giant dragon painting. I don't know that I would paint it on the wall. I'd probably paint it on raw canvas and just hang it there. But we were looking at all different kinds of dragon imagery to figure out what kind of a dragon would I paint. Look how gorgeous, shiny, and shimmery that gold is in the light. It's my favorite gold. Okay, so my dragon needs a color, but what color? Maybe he's going to end up being a dark blue to bring that dark blue back again. We'll just try and see. If I don't like it, I always get to paint it over. Get those little scalloped ridges. And the dragon and the woman are both looking in the same direction, which is interesting. That wasn't necessarily intentional, but that was just the way that it went. And so many of the pictures of the dragons that I see are so fierce. I told my friend Leslie, I always think of dragons more like Puff, the magic dragon, that they're sweet and benevolent and loving dragons rather than fierce Game of Thrones fire-breathing dragons. Kind of liking maybe just keeping the dragon just as a bit of a silhouette here in the foreground, right? That imaginary companion. I don't know why it made me think about as I was the girl who did not have rock star pictures on the walls of my bedroom. I had the unicorn tapestry, the one with the girl with the unicorn lying in her lap, and pictures of famous paintings. So my idols were always mythic in nature. I think Mary Stewart's The Crystal Cave was one of the first fantasy novels that I ever read, and from that moment on, I was completely hooked. Okay, I'm wanting, I think, to bring a little bit of these spirals back. Just feels like important to make sure those symbols are there. So does anyone else, when you think about this self-portrait, this visual representation of your journey within, what comes to mind? What do you think about? What do you see? Colors, shapes, symbols? So again, this feels like a fun and playful and mythical piece. I'm going to keep it pretty simple and abstract. I think it needs, let's see if we can just get some little pops of color and light going on. All around her. And then it's going to be time to like step away and let it dry and come back and look at it a few hours later to see if there's more of the story that wants to unfold here, more detail that wants to come. I'm getting to the place where I'm not sure. Kind of looks like confetti. Might be a little busier than I want, but again, I think it just needs to stay simple for the moment, and then I can decide later. But this is definitely one of those pieces that feels very personal, very much like that, inner representation of self. It's about the story for me here, not about the final product. And again, it feels like it's a good place to pause, definitely feeling like it needs that moon energy. I'm going to continue that mythical journey within. All right, it's a good place to stop. Thank you, Carol. Thank you, Leslie. I appreciate that. So happy Friday, my creative friends. Thank you for painting this soul searching self portrait along with me. Have a wonderful, wonderful weekend. I will be back next Tuesday at 7 a.m. Mountain Time. And hopefully it'll be a little warmer. Right now it's 5 degrees. It's a good day to stay inside in the studio. I'm Dr. Minette. This is Painting in Your PJs live with Minette, and today was all about soul searching self portraits. Have a beautiful, beautiful rest of your day, everybody. Thank you for joining me live. Thank you for catching the replay, and I'll see you guys all again soon. Bye bye.